Hi, I'm the Grow Boss. I write the Grow Book and Equipment Guide, and in this video we're going to test and compare the heat different lights produce, because there seems to be a lot of confusion about how much heat they make. So the best place to start is with the number one question you guys always ask me about light, and that's how much heat do they make? Which is actually a reasonable question, because there's lots of rumors and speculation out there, which is why in this video I'm going to test how hot the different lights really get and what's worth more, venting more air, removing the glass, or insulating the hoods, because we're going to test for all that in this video. But before we go on, you should know this is one of several short videos in a series about setting up your garden. There is a long video that covers everything you need to know about venting and cooling and adding CO2. But there are also a bunch of shorter videos like this that cover the individual topics too. There is one more thing I want you to know before we get started. All the examples I use in this video are going to be intense, and that's because it's easier for me to explain the basics of venting when you can see what's happening in a controlled space. Okay, so here's the first 10. And before we get into this, I just want to remind you that fans don't cool anything, right? They just vent heat. It takes an air conditioner to actually cool the air. And that's important for you to remember, because I'm about to change everything you know about venting. Okay, let's take a moment and let's go over our test tent, and let me introduce you to all the different components. I've got a table that's face up. And the reason that you'll see blue tape on everything is because the instructions for the gun like it when you hit the same thing, the same mark, the same material over and over to get the most consistent result. And I've got a thermometer hanging up over here. I've got a digital thermometer up here, and I have this thermometer upside down, so the metal part that changes the temperature is facing the light. I've got a wrench here, so we can see if the light is going to heat up the wrench anymore, like your car in the sun. We're going to go ahead and test the tent. We'll test the hood. We'll test the glass, has tape on it. And then when we start venting, we're going to test the ducting on its way in and out too. That way we get a pretty good reading of all the different things that are going on in the tent. Okay, so for this test, let's do a baseline. We're going to keep the store at 80 degrees. So the temperature in the store is 80. You can see thermometer 80, 83, 83, 83, 83, 83. All right, so our baseline temperature statically was 83 degrees. I've got a 1,000 watt light on now, and we're gonna zip up the tent, and let's just see how hot it gets without venting. Ooh, it's hot. You can feel the hot air come out right when you open the doors. All right, let's take a quick look. 110 directly underneath the light. 1.9 on the tape, 1.9 on the wrench, 107 on the vortex fan, 95 on the filter, 92 on the side of the tent, 133, 122, and on the glass, 194. It says it's 93 above it and 109 behind it, the door, 110. So worst case scenario, no venting, no insulation, glass in the hood, fan on in the room, about 110. Now let's go ahead and vent it. Okay, so we've been venting for an hour now. Let's take a look at the tent. 100 on the back, 88 on there. This is 92. The table's 96. The wrench is 94, 86, 87, 90, 88. All right, now let's move the fan filter outside the tent. But we're gonna run the hood through the other side of the tent too. So we're gonna create a sealed garden here, just like when we did the first test where we didn't vent anything. And now let's see what it looks like just venting the hood, but not the inside of the tent. All right, we've been venting for an hour now. It says it's 95, 92, 95, 96, 86, 90, 89, 115, 86 is our airflow in. All right, we're gonna take out the glass, flip the fan over so we're sucking from the hood, and let's see what that tells us. All right, so the back wall says 104. Woo! 96, 88, 86, 87. So the room temperature went up when we removed the glass, but the hood temperature and the thermal flow ducting temperature went down. Now let's insulate the hood and see what happens. Okay, right away the room's a little cooler. It's 102, it says 86, it's at 96 still, 84, 90, 84, 101. This thing's 87 degrees because all of the heat that was in the hood stays in the hood and the exhaust stream now because of the insulator, and then it gets dumped out of the tent. Now, I'm gonna show you just how extreme that is. I'm gonna put the glass back in the hood, and that way you can see like just how much that heat, that insulator is gonna save you. Okay, now this is glass in, vented through, sealed garden. The room temperature, 91, 87, 92, 89. This says 81, 83, 84, 80, 124. That was a big drop on the glass. Okay, this is with the 600L from Vortex. It only pulls 200 CFM. The room is 91, 84, 86, 89, 85. All right, just for fun, let's try some Kind LEDs and some Nickel City lights too, and see what kind of a heat load they put off. A Kind LED 1000. And is it expensive? Yes, compared to a light, but it's been on for an hour now, and it is not that hot at the tent. No venting, 95 degrees. The temperature, 94. The table's 102. The metal wrench is 102. The tent's 89. The metal is 105. Back here it's 102, 102. You can touch the bulbs, it's so cool in here. Okay, let's put a Nickel City T5 light in here now and see how much heat load that produces. Ooh, this one got a little warm. Not as warm as the HPS, but definitely warmer than the LED. Now this is the 16 bulb Nickel City T5. The room is 100, 100, 98, 90, 115. Crazy results, right? Which is exactly why I tell you more venting is never the right answer, because the temperature of the room went from 110 degrees without venting in test 1 to 100 degrees in test 2, and the only thing that changed was venting, which means venting is definitely worth it. But then when we compare those results to test 6 and 7, we see that venting more air doesn't do anything in terms of lowering the temperature, because in tests 1, 2, and 6, we used a 6-inch Vortex fan at 450 CFM. And then in test 7, we used a 4-inch Vortex fan that only pulls 230 CFM. And this is exactly why I tell you, venting more air doesn't decrease temperatures once you hit that sweet spot. And that sweet spot requires far less air than you think. And here's the proof. The 4-inch fan is as effective as the 6-inch fan, which means doubling your fan doesn't necessarily increase cooling, especially after you hit that sweet spot. But that's not all these charts show us. For instance, a sealed garden is clearly cooler than a vented garden by 5 degrees. And then, when we compare those numbers and add an insulator to the hood, we see another 5-degree drop in room temp. And even though the temp of the glass in the hood did rise, it definitely did not affect room temperature. In fact, even the flanges are cooler with an insulator. And even though the temps did not fall as much as they did just by venting the room, you can clearly see that it does help. And even though sealing
and insulating the garden didn't cool it as much as venting alone, together they reduced the heat load by another 10 degrees. Surprisingly, though, the room is a little hotter without the glass, by 4 degrees. But then, when we add an insulator, the temperature drops by 2 degrees. So the insulator is worth a little something something, even on a small hood like this. So imagine the benefits from insulating a supersized hood like this. After all, they have almost 3 times the surface area. What's most surprising about the glass temperature, though, is this. It goes from 194 to 124 degrees, 70 degrees cooler, and the room is still only 10 degrees cooler. And that's just for starters. Look at how hot the glass actually gets, and look at how much cooler it gets from venting. And we haven't even started comparing those to the super cool bad boy T5s and kind LED lights yet. And I would like to make one more observation before moving on, and it's about the wrench temp. And it's the exact reason I put metal in the garden. See, metal, just like your car, absorbs light both visible and beyond the visible range, and because it absorbs more wavelengths, it gets hotter than the atmosphere around it, which is why your car is 120 degrees inside when it's only 100 degrees outside. And the only reason I even bring this up is because I want to point out that the only garden where the wrench was actually hotter than the room was in the LED garden. And that happens for several reasons. First, LEDs are super focused, which means they focus the same light over a smaller area. Even this K5 from Kind, with the fisheye lenses, doesn't scatter the light as efficiently as a hood does. So it's really the same light concentrated in a smaller area, which ups the intensity. But that's not the only reason the wrench gets hotter. The principal reason is that most LEDs are flower lights, and it turns out that red light is lower on the electromagnetic spectrum, has longer wavelengths, which doesn't sound like much unless you also happen to know that just like microwaves, long wavelengths impart more of their energy into the object they strike. Which is why I say these types of lights, like the Nickel City Bad Boy T5s and the K5 series from Kind, like T5s and LEDs are perfect for the home grower that just wants to grow weed for themselves, right? I mean, who needs that extra heat and hassle of an HID bulb if you don't want the weight or the hassle of venting and the expense of cooling the air? But I also want you to remember that yield is based on light. And while you might be able to tell indoor bud from outdoor bud, you cannot tell 400-watt bud from 1,000-watt bud. And that's because quality is based on grower talent, not the lights you buy or the equipment you use.
Okay, as long as I'm here, I want to show you something about these 3 lights, because a lot of you come to my store and tell me how your 300-watt LED saves you like blah on heat, or how it performs like a 600-watt blah light. But from a baseline standpoint, where the fixture is actually drawing 600 watts from the wall, I'm going to show you what the real differences are between these lights. 600 watts worth of electricity is 600 watts worth of electricity. And if all 3 of these lights truly draw 600 watts worth of electricity, then they'll all get 600 watts hot. But that's where the difference comes in, because this is an HID HPS from Ushio, and this is like one of my favorite bulbs. But it takes that 600 watts worth of electricity and uses it to heat a gas, which then creates the light. So HID bulbs are 600 watts hot, plus the heat of the gas. Now let's look at this Nickel City Bad Boy 12 bulb T5. And this uses 600 watts worth of electricity. But then, instead of heating a gas, fluorescents make electricity by exciting electrons around the atom. And then when the electron falls back down, it releases a photon. So This uses 600 watts worth of electricity plus the heat of the fluorescent gas. And finally, let's talk about kind LEDs. Because if this draws 600 watts worth of electricity, then it's going to get 600 watts worth of electricity hot. But that's how LEDs are different. That's the magic of them, because LEDs convert electricity directly into light. They don't heat up a gas first. Now, they still get hot. They still get 600 watts of electricity hot, but they don't heat up a gas. That's why you have to understand all the details about venting. Because if you don't have a clear plan before you start buying shit, and you have to buy stuff twice because you didn't understand what you were buying, or how to use it, or what you were trying to accomplish, then this project is gonna get expensive in a hurry. Okay, I'm the Grow Boss. I write the Grow Book and Equipment Guide and the No More Grow More Fat cards. And if you want to buy my books or my cards, you can get them at your local hydro store, eBay, Amazon, or my website, thegrowboss.com. And if you still have questions and you still want help, you can call my hotline. It's $49 an hour. You can sign up for it on my website. We'll exchange pictures. I'll help you get your garden where it should be. All right, if you like the video, don't forget to click the like button, share it with a friend, leave a comment, and buy my books. Thanks for watching.